This webinar was recorded for subrecipients of the Tennessee Strong Families Grant on December 2nd, 2024. Ragan Schriver, clinical professor in the College of Social Work at the University of Tennessee and the director of the MSSW program for the Knoxville campus, was our subject matter expert presenter. This training was designed to help social workers and community advocates recognize and manage the emotional impact of vicarious trauma. Vicarious trauma occurs when professionals are exposed to their clients' traumatic experiences, which can deeply affect their own emotional and mental health. Through this training, participants will learn about the signs and symptoms of vicarious trauma, explore resilience building techniques, and develop self-care routines to mitigate its effects. These tools will allow them to continue their work with empathy while protecting their well-being and maintaining professional boundaries. The slides and reference materials are posted on the webpage for your reference and review. Today, back by popular demand, our presenter for Vicarious Trauma and Resilience is Ragan Schriver. He's a clinical professor in the College of Social Work at the University of Tennessee and the director of the Masters of Social Work program for the Knoxville campus. He's provided clinical services in alternative sentencing programs, inpatient and outpatient settings, and has served as the executive director of Catholic Charities of East Tennessee. He's currently the vice president of the board of the Tennessee chapter of NASW, vice president of the Knox County CAC, and serves as board member of the Volunteer Ministry Center. And we're so excited to have him back to be able to learn from him again today about this really important topic. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Schriver.
Thank you, Brooke. Your patience and kindness exceeds a lot I've seen. I got goofed up with last we were going to get together, and then I ended up missing it. So I'm really, really thankful and glad that I was able to be here today and be with you all. So I thought I would I've got, of course, a little bit of a PowerPoint that I could share. So I will share it with everybody. Here we go. And I'll put it in. Can everybody see that? Is it okay? Great. I'll just kind of talk through some of these slides, and then it would be great if you have a question or a comment to either just sort of voice it, or you could put it in the chat, and you could you can flag me down, and we'll try to respond to it. I feel like that this is something that we try to talk to our students about, the concept of vicarious trauma, and just basically grounded in the whole concept of self-care, caring for yourself, and being aware of what's going on internally. And when we are dealing with clients or dealing with systems or people or individuals that we're giving ourselves to. When you think about it, the work that we do in this type of work, whether we're working with individuals, is that it's unlike we go to a job and we do accounting spreadsheets, or we go to a job and drill something or whatever, and then go home and not think about it. We might think about it, but not really. But in this case, we're using our real self. We're using ourselves. The work we do with clients is us. We're in a real relationship with the person. So it's the use of our own heart, our own emotions, our own intellect, our own engagement. When we're hearing and talking with other clients, it's a way that our hearts are deeply involved in what's going on. So it's hard sometimes to set parameters around that, or to kind of like realize I really do need to care for myself. I need to somehow set a boundary or a recognition. And when there are certain red flags that are going up, sometimes we think, oh, like, what could this be? Like on Saturday, I had a little bit of a headache, and I'm like, what's wrong with me? What could be wrong? And so I kind of traced around what's happening to me, and I figured out I was a little dehydrated because I went running and was just hadn't drank enough, and so I had a little bit of a headache. But it's the same thing. Sometimes I knew what was wrong because I had talked to somebody, and I have a friend that's a doctor, and I could kind of check it out a little bit, or just look at my previous experience and see what was happening to me. But the same thing is true with some of these issues around like having ourselves triggered, or having a relationship issue kind of come up in a client context, where what's going on with me? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I thinking about the client a lot? And if we don't have a category or an understanding or a place to put that, then it's really hard to really kind of do anything about it if I don't fully understand what's happening to me, if that makes sense. So that's why we wanted to have, a program like this where we're discussing what is vicarious trauma as opposed to secondary trauma, as opposed to burnout, as opposed to compassion fatigue. What is actually happening to me? So then when I recognize what's happening to me, then I'm able to do something about it. And I think that's why it's really cool that Brooke and Swarps put this training together. So all that being said, if you look at this quote that's on this slide here, so this blew me away. I was doing a training on self-care and some of these concepts with another agency. And this woman said, I knew nothing about self-care, secondary trauma, or any of this. And it's unfortunate that many people don't know about it because you just don't have time or to really concepts to even think about. So it just blew me away. So I'm so excited that everybody is here to kind of learn a little bit more about these concepts. Um, Okay, so I may have done this with your group before, but if I asked you to take a pencil and if this was on a piece of paper in front of you and to connect all 9 dots that are here in front of us, and connect them with four straight lines, and connect all 9 dots without picking your pencil up off the paper, do you think you could do it? 4 pieces of paper, I mean, 4 lines, 4 straight lines. Don't pick your pencil up off the piece of paper. Connect all 9 dots. Do you think you could do it? Okay, let me tell the answer. Okay, this is the answer. You have to go outside the box. And I think this is the case with understanding vicarious trauma, understanding secondary trauma, understanding these issues and resilience, is it really does take going outside the box. Because I think that, when you think about it, when a lot of our agencies may be worried about like what's productivity, are we meeting goals, are we meeting the count that we're supposed to see today, or so have we met hours that we're supposed to, so all that's in the box that we have to check all those things off that are happening inside the box. But we, like I said a minute ago, are giving our true self to the clients that we serve. So we have to sometimes step outside that box and think, what am I doing to refill this box, this bucket inside of ourselves so that I can give a better service to the client that I'm dealing with? So outside the box, that's the question. So when we think about, and this is basically grounded in the concept of what trauma-informed care is, to think about not what's wrong with me, like what's wrong with me, but what happens to me. So my little example of Saturday having a headache from being a little bit dehydrated. Well, I could say, well, what's wrong with me? Oh my gosh, I've got a headache. Do I have cancer? Do I have am I having a heart attack? What's going on with me? But what happened to me? Well, I ran too far and didn't drink enough. All right. Well, okay. Well, gee, something happened to me. It's not my fault. It's just something that happened. And so I'm going to do something about it. And so the same thing, thinking about like, oh gosh, this client really is bothering me, or I'm finding myself thinking a lot about this client. What's wrong with me? Why can't I not get distant from this client? Why can't I have this? Why am I not bouncing back from the sadness of working with this client? Well, it's not really what's wrong with me. It's what happened to me. What's been my relationship history up to this point? What's been my work history up to this point? What do I bring to this situation that's making me react or respond in this situation? It's not my fault. It's not my fault. But I do get a chance to think about this, what's going on, and then where can I take it from here? I think if we're able to realize this, then we can really have a healthier approach to the work that we do. Then the other idea of feeling in control versus collaboration. So this is, I think, a big concept of that I've had a great realization. When I first started in our field, I felt like, well, gee, I'm the social worker. I'm the one with the degree. I'm the one that should be providing the services to the client. So then when the client doesn't always come through or doesn't always maybe find the healing that I thought they should heal because of my wonderful magic social work skills, they don't do that. Then I feel like it's my fault. I'm the one that's in control. So therefore, it's my struggle. It's my fault. So then I'm going around moping around because I'm not doing a good job. Well, I need to stop that. And I've luckily realized that this is the situation. When I'm engaging with a client, it's not all up to me. And it's not all up to them either. I'm collaborating with them. I get to have a say. I have control. I have some power in this relationship. But then so does the client have control and power in the relationship, that we're working together. So if I've got myself up here and I put my burden on myself, that it's all up to me, that I got to fix this person, and then they're here waiting to receive my services, then the burden is on me. Then that sets me up for trauma myself, because when things go wrong with this person, then it becomes all my fault. I had a very, very sad situation the other day. A good friend of mine that I kind of work with, a client of his died by suicide. And he'd been seeing the client for about 6, 8 months, and the client died by suicide. And it was a really, really tough thing on him. But I watched him walk through this and talk this. We talked it out. He saw himself as being a aspect of this person's life, but he wasn't kicking himself. He kind of wanted to, and there were moments where he was kind of wondering to what, oh gosh, but we kind of talked it out. All that was such real emotion to have those feelings. But I think like if he had thought, boy, this person's outcome is all based on me and I'm the one that's responsible here, then I think then he could have really set himself up to be in a really negative, tough, difficult situation. So I just wanted to say that as a point that we don't have to be the one that's carrying the burden of our relationships and work life with the clients. It's a collaboration. We share that with each other. And if the client isn't producing the outcomes, and then it's not all up to us, but then also we can share the wins with the client. Like, hey, look what look what you've been able to do. Look at the great things that have happened. It's not because of some magical intervention I'm doing. It's because we've worked together. Hopefully that makes sense. So these are two important questions that we draw from trauma-informed care. Is to think about like not what's wrong with me when I'm feeling in angst or feeling some sort of way with my clients. What I need to kind of analyze what has happened to lead me to this situation, and then the idea that I'm not the one in control. I need to be in collaborative relationship with my clients. Then I think something else to think about is to start with is I thought, well, gee, should I start with vicarious trauma discussion or should I start with the resilience discussion? Well, I think it's always good to start with our strengths. I was super excited a number of years ago when I was the director of the Catholic Charities Agency. We had a mental health counseling program. And so we had assessments that we did, and every assessment always began with what's wrong, like what's wrong, what's the difficulty, what's the problem. And so in the counseling program, what we decided to do was kind of put that on its head and say, when we begin the formal assessment, let's analyze the environment of the client and see what's going right, what's the strength, what's the positive thing that's going on in their life, and then maybe we can build on that from there. So it's almost like the question of like, okay, there's maybe a client might come to you and say, my child is truant in school and has a very difficult time making it to school. So of last week, there were 5 days in the school week, and my child did not make it to school 3 of those days. So 3 of the days were really tough, and they didn't make it. So what question could we ask? We could ask, why didn't you get there? What went wrong? What was the problem? What did the bus not? What happened? Or we could stop and say, okay, you made it 2 days. All right, what worked those 2 days? What got you there on those 2 days? Let's explore that and dive into that and build on that. Let's repeat that. Let's think about what worked, repackage it, and do it on the other day. And so that's what we're looking at when we think about a strength perspective. I think sometimes people think, well, strength perspective, that's just, everybody gets a candy cane or something. But like really the deal is that everybody has a strength. What is that strength and how can we build on it in different settings and different situations? So there are 2 types of strengths as we kind of see here. There's prevention strengths and then intervention strengths. So a prevention strength are some of the ones that I'm going to talk about here for just a second today. But these are the ones that maybe keep us from falling off. Like a prevention strength would be me taking time to drink water rather than waiting until I'm so thirsty that I have to find the water to drink later. So because I've got a headache. The deal is to think, okay, what am I going to do to drink the water to prevent myself from getting a headache? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so let's look at what some of these proud, triumphant, strong, and determined sort of things that we've got. See what some of those things are. To kind of turn this on its head. So let's talk about resilience. Okay, resilience. I feel like when I think about resilience, I think about the concept of like if you had a rubber band or some kind of rubbery band and you pulled and stretched it and it's stretched to the max and it's just all stretched out and it's tense and it's as far as it'll go. And then you let go of it and then boing, it goes back to where it was. That's kind of how we've defined resilience in a lot of ways, that we're able to kind of like withstand the stress, that we can be pulled and maxed out, but we can kind of go back to where we were. And that's kind of like a good example of what resilience is. But I'd like to add a little bit of an extra caveat to that. Yeah, okay, we're stretched and we're stressed and all that, and we go back to the way that we were. But really, I think real resilience isn't like that I can handle being stretched and I'm going to go back exactly the same way that I was, but I'm going to be stretched and stressed. I'm going to go back and be who I am, but maybe I'm a little stronger, or maybe there's something a little bit that I've got. I've learned something. I've added something else to my tool belt because I've been so stretched and I've been able to rebound from it. That there is something that can help me grow and be stronger, better, faster even than I already was. So that's what resilience is. I think the ability to withstand stress and the ability to kind of learn from stressful situations and deal with difficulties like that. So that's kind of what resilience is. So let's look at these ingredients of what we can think about for resilience. We see there connection, activity, mindfulness, altruism, and continuous learning. So let me just kind of run through these. And what I'd like for you guys to do is I'm kind of talking this through. If you could think about, wow, where is this in my life? I think that we've all got these as some element of them, but to what degree? So maybe we could just think about like the idea of connection. That relationships are a really important ingredient in resilience. So if we think about that, think, well, okay, we all have relationships. I mean, it's just impossible even if it's the relationship with the checkout person at the grocery store or something, or the person that delivers your Uber Eats or whatever. We've all got a relationship, but really, how, to what extent, and what value are those bringing to my life? If I could ask you to think about that, even kind of jot it down for yourself and think, gee, where is this for me? Okay, so connect. So connection, basically, if we think about it from the very, very beginning of the human experience, the minute, I mean, before you're even born, like, I mean, that it's a relationship with the mom that you're inside already, is that there's a connection, there's a relationship. It's this cornerstone of life, is the idea that we're in a relationship. So if you think about how attachment, the process of attachment builds the architecture of the human brain. The connections that are made neurologically are made because of the relationship with the other person, with a primary caregiver. They call that the serve and return, that the baby kind of goo goo gaga, and then the parent or primary caregiver kind of does that back to the child. And then that develops an ability to kind of come out of the child's self, to be able to develop the child's personality, develop the child's thinking patterns. That's just so important. So if we think about that one thing being so important from the time that we're very, very first show up on the scene, all the way through our life. My mom is 95 now. And so I think about her, and I think about her thinking pattern, because her brain isn't as strong. The connections aren't as easily developed as they were when she was an infant, but they're still trying to develop. So I was noticing that because a lot of her friends have passed away, and so she spends some time alone. And so I was noticing the more time she spent alone, the more confused that she got. But if one of the kids or whoever, then we started getting more people going by. I do notice a difference. She is a little bit more aware. She's a little bit less forgetful, I think, because there's more of a connection that's going on a day-to-day basis. So this is huge for us. Well, you may be thinking, as I have done for myself, sadly, that I'm thinking, well, gee, I connect with clients, I connect with my colleagues at work. Isn't that good enough? Well, that's really great and really awesome. But wow, if we could find other people to connect with around like a sport, a hobby, a board game, a movie, a music, whatever it is that's outside and has nothing to do with that work that we're doing, and be able to connect and talk and share and be who you really are and celebrate who you really are and cry about the things that make you sad and things like that. That's just kind of thing that you have with friendships that we might not have at work always. Now, I want to say this, that I feel like some of the deepest connections I've had in my life are with some of the people that I work with and that I have worked with. I still get together with a group that I worked for for the 15 years at Catholic Charities. There's a group of people we're getting together this Sunday. And I think that the connections that we made at work there really were survival. So like when you're facing human suffering every single day, it's not something that I can bear on my own. There were other people that I worked with that we could joke about things that no one else would think was funny. We could complain about things that no one would ever begin to understand. So I feel like that when we're working in this field, it's so important to kind of have those people that we can talk with and share with, and that do identify with us. So those are hopefully that makes sense, that we have our outside relationships and that we're connecting with, but we also have those maybe work life relationships that we've got too. So I just can't say strong enough about how important this is. The primary, I feel like, really thing to think about. Who do I talk to? Who do I share my life with? Who am I real with? That's outside the box. We got to have them a little bit outside the box. Okay, then now here's the next thing. Notice I'm drinking. So let's see, that's a resilient thing. So being active there. This is probably like thinking, oh no, now he's going to tell us to exercise. But really, I think the thing is, we can wait for that for the New Year's resolution. But I feel like that the idea for being active is a resiliency factor. I think that even if we're just able to get up and kind of walk around the office a little bit, kind of get our blood flowing, get our, our bodies are meant to move around. But the way that life is now, it's really hard to even find time to move around because you have to sit at your desk, you have to sit in a case management situation, you have to drive from here to there. I mean, there's so much sitting that we have to do. But I feel like sometimes that's antithetic to who we are as who we've been created to be. So I feel like it's just if there's some way that we could get a little bit of activity to kind of get our brains going and get our hearts going and things like that. I think that this does bring resilience, some form of activity, and even like it's surprising how little activity it can take to kind of keep us healthy. I was reading something the other day that like even just like tensing up your muscle a little bit, even a couple times a week, even if you're able to pick something up or whatever, that there's just if we're just doing something to kind of get our body going. When the body is somehow taxed through an activity or exercise or something, there's like a release of an endorphin, of course, because the sort of like your brain is being fooled into thinking that there's something going on, and so then it responds with an endorphin to kind of help you feel better. So there is that endorphin that comes with it. So I think that's a way to kind of feel good in a healthy, robust way. There was a research study too that said that even if a person at work could look outside and see something green, see some plants or see something in the sky or something, that their productivity was much higher because there was some sort of connection to the outdoor. So I think that goes along with the activity idea. Is that I'm able to get some fresh air or gets to connect some way with the outdoors. So that kind of feeds into the next thing about taking notice. How many of us spend our day thinking, okay, what's next? I've got to hurry and get to the next thing. How am I going to make it to this next event? Am I going to be on time? Or or even I know this morning, just a little bit ago, I was thinking about, well, I've got something at 5:30. I'm already worried about it. So, I'm going to miss all this whole day because I'm so worried about what's going on at 5:30. Then I'm not enjoying the moment in which my life is in right now. I found like if we could mine, I like this somebody showed me this word, mining mine the moment for what's cool in it, like what's great in it, what's enjoyable in it, or what's enriching in this moment. Even if so, a little bit earlier this morning, I was in a lecture that somebody else that I was having to watch, and so I was thinking, wow, this is not real exciting, is it? And so as the person was speaking, I think, okay, well, I'm going to think about what can I get out of this moment? And so I was just looking around the room and looking at the different people that were there. And, I don't know, it's just kind of think about so here this lecture was kind of boring, but at least I was able to think about, okay, well, what are these people doing? Or what I need to talk to that person about something, kind of take what's in the moment. But so cool to think it like the little image that's here on the screen that like even on a cold winter day to be able to say, okay, I'm going to just really revel in this moment that I've got before us. And so I'm super psyched about that, to be able to kind of just enjoy, savor, mine the moment for what's there, what it has to offer in the best way. So I think that kind of comes true when we're thinking about the clients that we work with. Rather than thinking about, okay, what's the outcome going to be, but what's the process that we're in right now? Where am I with this client right in this very moment? And not be so focused on what's yet to come kind of thing. Now, this may be something that you may be thinking, why is he telling us to do this? Because we're all already spending our whole days doing stuff for other people. Well, I have to say then you're in the right business, because there is so much evidence that when we do something for somebody else, then there's a little bit of a dopamine or sort of an reward hit in our brain or our body, that there's a reward factor. So this kind of goes back to the creation of the human person, or the development of the human person. We were all kind of born in tribes or clans or groups of people. So when we do something for someone else, it strengthens the clan or strengthens the tribe. And if the tribe is stronger, I'm stronger and I'm safer. So when I'm doing something for somebody else, it does click a positive in me, because that reward is important for my strength and my development, because I'm strengthening the clan or the group or the community that I'm a part of. So that then we all strength are stronger. So if I'm doing something for somebody else, I'm doing something for myself and doing something for my community. So when you think about all the thing that you're doing every single day, and you draw strength from it and you draw joy from it, that's so cool, because that's what we're meant to do, is do things for others and build up our community and build up the the clan, the family that we're a part of. So that's a big deal. But also, like, I know, like, some people say, well, this is self-care discussion and you're telling me to do something for somebody else. That's all I do all day. Well, then savor that. Like, be psyched about that your job is you getting to do cool stuff for other people, and you enjoy it and get to have that joy of making our clan stronger. Then the other thing that's part of this one, I think, is expressing gratitude. Let's see, like, if you think about maybe Christmas time, you're thinking, okay, well, gee, what am I going to ask Santa for this year? And I'm thinking about all the things. I better think about the things I want. That's what we teach the kids. We'll write your letter to Santa and think about what you're going to want. Well, I feel like we're teaching people to think what's missing in your life, to think about, like, what's missing in your life. Maybe it'd be cool to think, well, could I write Santa and tell him what cool things I've had, or how I used last year's gift in a great way? Wouldn't that be a different way to kind of think about it? So if we're thinking about how in our lives, to be able to say thank you, Santa, for last year's gifts. I'm still using them, and I'm really excited looking back on it. So thank you. So what a good feeling that is, to realize our cup is full, not to recognize how empty we are. So I think that's a really important thing. If you ever think about it, like writing a little thank you note or something like that, if you get a thank you, that's just such a meaningful thing. So I think giving thanks is a big part of resilience. Then this idea of keep on learning. So if you can see in the little picture there are paintbrushes. So a few years ago, I hurt my knee and I couldn't run. I thought the world was over, but because I'm a running addict. But so then somebody gave me this little book on how to draw. So I thought, well, all right, well, I've got this little extra time in my day. Maybe I'll just try this. And so, and of course, I'm a terrible artist. I'm terrible at it. But it was kind of fun. I was able to try, and I learned how to draw a rabbit and different little things, and it ended up being kind of cool. So I was using a totally different part of my brain, a totally different part of my life, in a way, because it's something I've never been a part of, and it was kind of fun. It added another dimension to it, and I found myself thinking about it, in different parts of the day, and that's kind of thing to think about. So I think kind of challenging ourselves to think, well, what new neurons can I grow in my brain through painting, or maybe drawing, or maybe playing pickleball, or maybe playing chess, or whatever. Just kind of something else that's kind of challenging ourselves, rather than just kind of staying in the same old loop. Back to my mom again. 95. I mean, to be 95, and she lives in her own home, and kind of maintains a lot of it. And so I think that's because she spent a lot of time doing crossword puzzles in her younger years, meaning like early 90s, late 80s. She was doing crossword puzzles and Sudoku puzzles and things like that, to kind of keep different parts of her brain going. Just challenging a different part of the brain is a great resiliency factor. Okay, so now this is, if we were all in person, maybe you could put into the chat. Maybe you could think about, have you share a time where you feel like you exhibited one of these characteristics. Maybe when did you thank someone, or when did you savor the moment, or mind the moment, or when did you take a moment to recognize a relationship that you're in? If you feel free to kind of put it in the chat. And even maybe if there's something about a coworker that you've recognized one of these resiliency factors, that'd be really great too. So that's just a way to kind of maybe think through some of this stuff. Okay, so now let's think through. So that's a bit about resilience. So now let's talk a little bit about the next aspect, which is what we're looking at today, resilience, and then vicarious trauma. But I kind of want to put vicarious trauma in a context of some other issues that we all face. And so, especially in this field that we're in, including like stress or just sort of a stress response, burnout, compassion fatigue, secondary trauma, vicarious trauma, and then I'm not going to go into critical incident stress. That's a whole other thing. I just want to talk a little bit about these. But these six things are important things to enumerate and understand. So the reason I kind of wanted to talk about these six things is because of the same thing that I was saying earlier. I had a headache. The headache could have been a lot of different things, but what exactly was going on with me was that I was dehydrated. So the same thing might be happening. I'm not feeling right in my life. Is it stress? Is it burnout? Is it compassion fatigue? What's happening to me? Okay, I realize it's stress. All right, because I'm stressed because the budget is difficult to be able to meet. So therefore, I'm realizing I'm stressed. So that's what's causing the stress. So therefore, I can do something about it. That's why we wanted to kind of like give some of these terms to you. Okay. So stress, just to kind of start off with, I think stress is basically kind of the underlining or undergirding sort of concept for all these other things. That the body has a natural system that's built in that deals with or responds to demands or challenges or issues that we need to address. So stress is really a good thing because okay, here comes this big challenge. Like, I got the opportunity. I was asked to give this presentation for you guys today. And so I feel like I had a bit of stress about it because I needed to get to do it and I want to put it together and I wanted to make it good. But also the stress motivated me and made me do a good job and made me want to put this together and maybe want to learn some more things and explore some other ideas. So the stress was a motivator. So if we didn't have some form of stress in our daily life, then we'd probably just be home watching Price is Right all day or something like that. You know what I mean? So I think stress is something that's important to our human body. But the thing is when we cross over the divide of getting to where it's just too much, where I'm always stressed and I'm always being taxed and I'm always being pushed, that can have a backfire. So it's one of those things where, okay, healthy, 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 and then oops, no, not so much. If you're looking at it as a continuum, which we'll look at here in a second. But you think about this concept of eustress and distress are the kind of the two things, and I think it's important to kind of recognize where is that in my life. Okay, my work is challenging. I'm looking forward to it. Oh gosh, I got to get up early to go to work, but okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go and I'm going to meet the clients and there's a new challenge today. I'm looking forward to that. Or am I in a place where I have so many clients, I just don't know how I can meet all the demands. I'm running this thing on a shoestring budget. I just don't know what to do. So you can kind of think about like where are you on this sort of this continuum of eustress versus distress. So I thought this was interesting that the German term for stress is Belastung, which means strain or a load or a burden. So if we think about what is the stress, is there's a certain burden on us. There's a certain weight that we're having to carry. So this is just like what I was talking about a minute ago with exercise. Exercise is something that you want to have a little bit of strain on the body, but then when it gets to be so much that you just can't carry it or just can't pick it up or just can't do it, then that's harmful to the body. So when we think about a stress as being a burden or a load or something that we have to carry around, that's what I think. I like that example or that definition of I've got a load that I'm carrying. How can I unload some of this? That's an important element to kind of think about if we're looking at it. Here's back to what I was talking about a second ago was this continuum that when we think about, well, if there's not enough stress in our life, then we're just watching Price is Right at home. Or are we, if there's optimum stress, okay, well, I'm in a place where I feel a little bit challenged by what this client is bringing to me. I feel challenged about how am I going to bring this funding program together so I can make the thing work to the point of where, okay, then if you find yourself staying within that, and then I think to prevent ourselves from going from the yellow to the orange, although orange is very good, we know here in East Tennessee, or all of Tennessee, but to think about that, to stay in that yellow thing, to think about what resiliency factors can I prevent myself from going over to too much stress, to where I'm feeling too taxed, it's too much, I'm drawn too much into it. And this is really takes an important element of looking at what's an inventory in my life to be able to stop and think, what is it that pushes me over the edge from the yellow to the orange or over to the red, goodness forbid. Okay. So this is what I think we have to recognize. The expectation, this is a great quote. The expectation that we can be immersed in suffering and loss daily and not be touched by it is as unrealistic as expecting to be able to walk through water without getting wet. So I think that it's so true. I cannot be in contact with clients that I'm working with in whatever format that I'm working with them and not have that impact me, not have that touch my life in some way. And so I think we just have to recognize it. I could be the strongest, best social worker in the universe. I could know resiliency inside and out. I could know self-care to myself all day long, but it's still going to impact me. But the question is, what am I going to do about it? How am I going to connect it to my life? So I kind of like these signs that the idea that we're signs that we're too stressed. Find yourself hoping to get to the flu so you don't have to go to work. Wondered more than once if your cell phone would float if you threw it over. Case files become light bedtime reading. I found myself in that situation, and I bet many of you on the phone call today have too. Um, your best friend thinks you've moved away because you aren't able because you're always working or whatever, and then just all those different things you can kind of read there. Red Bull is part of a balanced diet, which isn't true. Different things like that. So I feel like if it's important to know what am I doing to help me maybe is there a behavior I'm engaging in, or is there a feeling that I'm having right now that's a red flag to me to recognize I'm too stressed, there's too much. Okay, so we talked a little bit about these two terms of the positive stress that motivates us, and then the negative stress when it gets crosses from the yellow to the orange, that it becomes negative and it can lead to negative behaviors to try to help ourselves. So the bummer with stress is that when it gets from that yellow to that orange, you kind of wonder, well, gee, what's wrong with me? Well, why do I have a headache? Well, maybe I'll take some aspirin, or maybe I'll go lie down for a while, or maybe I'll maybe go get an alcoholic drink or something like that just to make myself feel better, because I'm not recognizing that it's the stress that's causing it, or if that makes sense. So I think it's important to recognize what are the behaviors that we're doing to try to deal with whatever stress that's going on in our life. And I think that's what's important to kind of understand what these different things are, because the issue of the amount of stress, it's not, but it's rather how am I coping with it. So as you can kind of see, I showed this picture to a friend of mine and he said, can deer climb like that? And I'm like, no, it's a joke. So that kind of thing that whatever we're doing, maybe we're going outside of ourselves to try to cope with whatever stress that we're dealing with in our life. And whatever way we cope through it is maybe to draw on some of those resilience factors. You know, I think when we think about stress, that we maybe have learned some things from our parents and grandparents or other people in our life. I wonder if it might be worth looking at to think, could I do a little genogram? This is a classic social work tool that we all have to utilize the genogram. How did my parents and grandparents handle stress? How did I learn for my life? How did I learn to handle stress? Am I just doing whatever I'm doing? Am I overworking or overstretching or whatever because that's what I saw my parents do and that's what they saw their parents do? It'd be good to stop a cycle here. What do I need to do differently? I think that would be a great question to just kind of stop and at. Maybe I could do a stress genogram. How did families handle stress and where did I learn this? Maybe just for a few moments. Another classic social work tool is the eco map, where you're looking at what are the resources within my environment. When I find myself really stressed, maybe if I've got myself in that middle circle, I can look and see what the other things are around me. If I'm finally feeling so stressed, what are the other things? If I see like, okay, my favorite game to play is chess, and I see that I recognize the line to myself, I'm never playing chess anymore because I'm always working or I'm always doing things for somebody else. Well, then maybe I need to reconnect that a little bit. Or maybe learning or reading books is something that I'm not doing anymore because I'm whatever. So I think it would be important. What are the factors in my life that are helping me, the resources in my life that are helping me cope with stress? And am I engaged with them right now or not? That's a really important question. And so I think utilizing this sort of like, how did I learn this stuff? And then now, what am I doing about it? What in my environment am I accessing to help me deal with my stress? So you can kind of see here, just a little example, that there are so many different aspects that help us or guide us in our response to stress. What our culture says about stress, or work, or those types of things. I know, like, someone very close to me is of a very strong German heritage, and the culture that he grew up in was work, work, work. On Saturdays, you go clean the basement. On Mondays, you go back to work and you're working. But is our body surviving well in that? So I think there are cultural influences as well as societal influences and things like that. So I think it's important to look at when we're looking at like this to see where are the points, maybe even that might be a little bit maybe detrimental or driving me away from caring for myself, and how do I deal with those? Just a little suggestion. The good thing is, or the interesting thing is, that we all handle it differently. So you can kind of see here, these are the sort of stages of grief, that they talk about, but like they're all over the place for each and every single one of us. That we all handle things differently, and that's neat. That we are all unique. So there's not just this one size fits all. That's why I think like it's cool to have these things blank. You could do a little blank thing like that and fill it in for yourself. You make yourself that way. Okay, I'm gonna zip through this part because I'm realizing that I've talked too much, and I think I talked a little bit about this too much. Oh gosh. Okay. Here's the thing I kind of wanted to say. We can learn on that. I could go back to it later some other time, but I think I talked a little bit about that brain stuff when we did the trauma responsive one. But here's a really kind of a fascinating sort of thing to think about for yourself. Okay, if you think about what stress or stress is in our life, you could think about it as being a combination of challenge and the level of confidence. The level of challenge being on the one axis there, and if the challenge is really high, then you could maybe rate it up there and think, wow, this is a really big deal. Versus the challenge being really low. Oh, I do that all the time. I don't have to worry about that one. And the confidence that you have about doing whatever you're getting ready to do or whatever is a part of your life. The confidence is low, then you're kind of nervous about it. Like, can I do this? I don't believe in myself. I don't know if this is all new to me. I'm not sure if I can make it. So then if you put these two together, I think that's where you can kind of identify where you might be on a stress response. So say, for instance, giving this presentation for me. It's a bit of a challenge because I had to put it together. I wanted to think about it. So, okay, well, that puts me maybe at like, right up there around maybe, a little bit higher on the higher end. And then to think about, well, confidence level. Well, I feel pretty confident about it. I've talked about this stuff before. I've read about this stuff before. I'm a human being. I've lived some of these things. So I could maybe put that around the middle. So I feel pretty confident. So if I go up and then it's pretty good challenge, I'd say I'm in the arousal stage there. All right. Well, there's some stress. There's endorphins going through me and things like that. I feel pretty strong about it. So maybe that's where I am right now. If I feel like maybe, oh gosh, I've done this 1,000 times and then it's just not a challenge, I'm sort of tired of talking about it, that would put me down there in apathy. And then I might be just kind of slogging through this or whatever, feeling whatever I feel. So maybe for yourselves, maybe you could make this little sort of axis for yourself. Where do you find yourself on a daily basis? Are you finding yourself engaged and flowing through things? Are you finding yourself worried about what's going to happen all the time because you're not confident in it, but it's a big challenge to you? Where are you in that? And maybe what part of the two axes can you adjust? Maybe I don't feel very confident. Why not? Because I'm afraid to tell my boss that I don't know what part of the things that I'm doing that I don't understand very well. Well, that's easy. Maybe we could talk and be honest, and then talk to your boss and say, I need to learn a little bit more about something, or I need a bit more practice in doing something, and maybe that'll help build the confidence, and then to the challenging aspects of your work life. Hopefully, these ideas, this little kind of arrangement makes a little bit of sense. Okay, something that I think is really important is the idea of trying to think about how do I maintain a boundary for my own life. I think social work does involve a lot of interaction with other people. So how do I protect myself from letting the stress that someone else may be feeling? How do I keep that stress from coming into me? I think sometimes there is a thing about like when we're with other people, sometimes we take on their emotions or take on their feelings. There's these mirror neurons that we have in our brain. And so it's scientific. Sometimes somebody's experiencing something, and then I end up kind of consuming it or taking it on as well. And then we're both kind of feeling it. So if I can think about, okay, well, that's you and this is me, and I'm going to think about how am I here with this person so that I can collaborate with them and not be able to just fully take on or adapt to what they're doing and take that on as my own experience or my own feeling. So that's that mirror neuron that we do naturally. So like if somebody else is laughing and somebody else is having a good time, sometimes you kind of want to take that on a little bit. And so the same thing can happen if someone's stressed or someone's anxious. Then there's that we kind of take that on for ourselves sometimes. You ever notice like how sometimes with someone yawns, you tend to yawn too? They attribute that a little bit to the mirror neuron concept. So it's important to remember I'm myself, the client is themselves, or this work setting is their self. So how do I deal with that? Okay, so I think we could talk about boundaries for a while. Okay, but I wanted to get to these terms again. Okay, burnout. Here's the first of these really important terms that I wanted to share with you a little bit about today. Okay, so burnout basically is long-term job stress. I've got too much going on. There's too many things happening. I've got too much on my plate. I'm just exhausted. I'm anxious because I'm never going to get it done. Like right now, this is going to sound silly, but we used to sign graduation uh, things, just sign all that stuff just on paper, and that was easy. Yeah, I would count up the number of hours on the student when they graduated, and then sign it on a piece of paper. Now it's on SharePoint, and to be honest, signing those things and getting it back, I'm stressed out about it because it's like I'm sort of burned out of signing those stupid things because you have to open the computer. I don't know if y'all have to deal with stuff like that, but so and then I get cynical about it. Oh, that stupid SharePoint, and I kind of then I'm bitter at the person that works with me that she's sending me all these. So I feel like that's a kind of a goofy example of what burnout could be. But I give that silly little example of having to sign forms, and then to think about like every single day, I've got to take case notes. I've got to make sure the case notes get scanned in to the server. I've got to make sure that people know what's going on. I've got to contact every client or whatever. That could just be overload. It could be too much. And then even maybe something that wasn't a challenge is now a challenge. Something that maybe you used to feel confident with, you're no longer confident about it. So that puts you in that very difficult, stressful spot. So maybe some of the things to think about for yourself. How can I identify that I'm experiencing burnout? Think about, do you have much control over the work schedule that you're having or the pace that you work? That's an important thing to think about. If you feel like, okay, well, I've got a quota to meet every single day, I have to see this number of people, I have to see them for this long, that feels a little bit out of control. So how can you bring some control into your own life to prevent burnout? That's an important question. Do you find a lack of support from other coworkers or other colleagues? The isolation, like, are you in your car all day going from case to case, or are you in a remote office where you're the only one there? It's you and the clients or something. That kind of thing can really be tough and can build towards this burnout concept, the burnout form of stress. And just, of course, overloaded work, not necessarily the emotional aspect of things, but just too many things to sign, too many papers to do, just too much work to do that you have to do. And another question is, how many people are reporting to you? They say that the ceiling is about 11. That really shouldn't have more than 11 people reporting to you if you're a manager. But if you've got 10 or if you've got like 15 people, 20 people reporting to you, how can you be responsible for all of that and kind of manage all that? I feel like I've seen this with a lot of people that have some sort of a temporary period where they're supervising, maybe 20 people because one of the people had got lost their job or was out on something like else. It really should not be fall to one person. So that's just a thing to think about. And I think that takes a little bit of guts to reach out to the people that are supervising you to say, I'm feeling these things. I feel like I'm not getting enough interaction with my coworkers. So maybe we need to create a thing where there's lunch, each day, or maybe or once a week, or there's a Zoom meeting if we're all in different places where we're able to just connect and talk about the issues that we're dealing with. Something like that where we're building a connection with each other. Hopefully those things make sense to think about burnout. Then you think about just there are things for us as individuals. Am I brand new to the profession? So this can be, I feel like that sometimes there's that The idea that I'm brand new and I really don't know what I'm doing. I need to hide that imposter syndrome. That's a big thing. But to think I'm brand new, so therefore I have to fake it all day long, like I act like I know what I'm doing. That can lead to bad burnout. That you're always kind of like trying to know what's going on. Really, you kind of don't. I remember when I was managing the agency, I was in a finance committee meeting, and I really was brand new to budgeting and finance and money stuff, all that. So they were talking about this thing called a ZBA. They kept talking about a ZBA. And so I'm expected to know what that is, but I have no idea what it is. So I acted like I was coughing and I got up and had to go call a friend of mine that was an accountant and say, what exactly is a ZBA? So she explained it to me like it's a zero balance account. So she had explained it to me real quickly so that I could go back into the meeting and know what I was talking about. That's exhausting to have to do that all the time. So that new to the profession and having to do that exhausting kind of stuff all the time to act like you know what's going on can be really difficult. So just to be aware of that. If you've got a personality that's a bit defensive, or there's change becomes very tough on you because when workplace change comes about, that can always kind of be something that adds to the stress. The conflict avoidance thing is a really big issue too. So like something may be very difficult, or somebody may be doing something that you really do not like, but you just can't deal with the conflict. I think that's where you could reach out and find some training to think, what can I do to better deal with conflict? What can I do to work with this, and talk to someone about feelings or ideas that I'm having. So these are some factors that are set up risks for burnout. Okay, so that's burnout. Now, here comes another category of stress called compassion fatigue. Now, compassion fatigue is a little bit different than just having too much to do, like too many documents to sign, or too much paperwork to fill out, or too many places to see during a day. But to feel where you are emotionally available to people all day long, and it begins to wear on you and kind of wear you down. So it can feel like you're exhausted, or you're feeling kind of detached from other people. Maybe you're really your experience of positive emotions are gone. A lack of desire to engage with others, or care about others, or even care about the society or the situation that's going on. So it can present biologically or physically in a way where you're feeling that elevated stress. You feel a little bit of despair or a stagnation in your life. You don't want to go out with people in the evening that you used to do, or don't want to talk to your spouse, or something like that. So this is a bit of when you recognize these as symptoms, to think about, well, what's going on with me? Am I burned out? Well, gosh, I don't have too much work to do. I'm able to get it done during the day, but maybe I'm finding myself where I'm just so worn out because every day I'm hearing and having to be present to people that are deeply suffering, and I'm just worn out of it. Like because I feel like it is much more taxing. Think about it. Like if you're in a daily experience where, I don't know, you worked at a grocery store and you're checking people out. I mean, that's tiring, and there's a lot to do, and there's a lot of things to learn and think about, and to take care of, and a lot of people to interact with. But if you were at a grocery store and people were there to come in and tell you about what was wrong with their life and what was difficult, and looking to you for some support in that, that's just a different angle to it. So if I think about this compassion fatigue, is that I'm having to draw from myself a level of compassion, a level of care, a level of responsibility for a person's situation, then I really need to think about that. So that's the idea of what compassion fatigue is. So when I talked, much earlier about the idea of, like, if I set myself up as being the answer, that I'm in control, that I'm the one that's dealing with a person's struggles, and that, and to think about, like, okay, wait, I'm working on a collaborative way, then maybe that's something that can help in a way with the compassion fatigue. But to think about yourself, all right, you go home at night, you're exhausted, you're stressed, you're thinking about the clients, maybe having dreams about some of the situations that are being presented to you, that clients are presenting to you, things like that. You feel sort of burdened, I mean, like sort of numb almost to emotions, and then even kind of becoming numb to people who are important to your life. Then you're kind of thinking, okay, here's these symptoms. What's happening to me? But to think about it, like having a headache could be a lot of different things that could be caused because of a lot of different things. But I was able to recognize that this headache was because I didn't drink enough after I worked out. Well, the same thing here. Burnout and compassion fatigue can sometimes feel a little bit the same. Like, I don't want to engage. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'm detached. But then to think about what's going on. I have so much to do at work. I'm never going to get it done, versus I'm just worn out because I've heard 4 times today about terrible things that have happened in people's lives and hearing them have emotional responses to those things and to have to sit with that and be with that and create space for that, day after day. There's something that's a different thing, which requires a different set of solutions. So hopefully we're able to identify, am I experiencing compassion fatigue or am I experiencing some sort of burnout? So here's a little example. So Madison is a little bit different than Diane. So Madison here, she is goes to work each day, and she has to face the so many documentation that she has to keep up with. She has to drive and go see all of her clients at their homes, and so she's expected to see 8 or 9 people every single day, and they all live in different places because it's in a rural area. She has to come home at night and do the case notes because she's driving so far from one place to the next, and she has to spend a meaningful amount of time with the clients. She feels confident in what she's doing, and she feels like when she's with the client, she feels confident in it. But it's just so much that she's constantly under a bit of stress. Versus Diane. Diane works in one office, and she's got a caseload of people that have been through some traumatic events, and that's basically what her job is. So every day she's hearing people are crying to her, people are angry about their situations, people are dealing with different things. She comes home every night at 5:30, just like she normally would, but she just is still exhausted, and just all she wants to do is just sit and watch TV and not worry about the rest of her life. So you can see some of the symptoms are the same, but the experience is different. Madison is experiencing burnout, and Diane is feeling the impact of compassion fatigue. So hopefully, those are things that you can kind of tease out for yourself or your coworkers, or maybe some people you're supervising. That's all really important. Okay, so let's think about these two other terms, and which is what we're here to talk about. Really, is the idea of vicarious trauma versus secondary trauma. So I am kind of distinguishing these two terms in my own way. I don't, there's different people talk about things differently about when they get to these terms. Sometimes vicarious and secondary trauma are used interchangeably. I kind of like to think of them as two different experiences, because I think there are two different experiences of this idea. So let me explain it to you. Okay, secondary trauma is when you begin to experience another client or another human being, a client's trauma or stress as my own. So I'm having just as deep of a reaction mentally, emotionally, physically to a client's stressful experiences or traumatic experiences as if it happened to me. So for instance, this is real. So like I had one client that had something terrible happen to them, and it was in a dark alley. It was like your classic, just difficult, terrible thing that happened to them in a dark alley. So they were explaining to me, talking to me about it, working through the emotions of it, kind of experiencing. I felt like I was doing a pretty good therapeutic intervention with the person. Then a couple nights later, I'm having a dream of me in a dark alley, being afraid and scared to death. I've never been in a dark alley. I mean, but I was having that experience. I was taking that on because I was all in it with the person. So that was an experience, I think, of a secondary traumatic experience where I was taking that on from the person. So I feel like I have pretty good boundaries in myself, and I feel like I was able to do a pretty good job with that person, but it still impacted me. So rather than getting up the next morning and wondering, gee, why did I have a dream about it? I was able to realize that I knew what was going on for me. And so I kind of find myself being a little, maybe even like jumpy, about things or something like that. Which when secondary trauma can hit us in a way. So if we think about it's basically secondary trauma is the transmission of the elements of trauma that you're working with in another client. It's a transfer of that experience to me experiencing it firsthand. So this is happening. It's something that happened, like I explained, it just happened to me. It happens to lots of folks that I know about that are in this profession. So there are guardrails that we could put up. We could recognize what are the triggers for myself, what are things that ring a bell with me that I end up kind of taking on. Do I have a really good supervisor that's helping me deal with things that I can be honest with, that I can share with? Do I have my own therapist? Do I have my own friendship circle? Do I have my own good colleagues that I can talk to about this? Can I write things in a journal? Can I sit and reflect on things? Can I be more mindful about what's happening? I think all that stuff is really important and kind of help keep secondary trauma at bay in a little bit. To think about how what resources do I have to kind of help me decompress from hearing the difficult things that I'm hearing about every day. So now secondary trauma is different than vicarious trauma because vicarious trauma, I'm exhausted, I'm worn out, hearing these things each day are really wearing on me. Versus secondary trauma, I'm hearing some specific things and I'm having an emotional reaction to those things as if they happen to me. So hopefully you can see the difference that's there. So that's important because I think, again, important things that you would do. Vicarious trauma, I might think about, well, what are other ways that I can relieve the stress of this? But secondary trauma, I may be thinking about, okay, what am I going to do to kind of create a little bit of a boundary for myself? What can I do to kind of work through some of this trauma? That kind of stuff. So there's different things that we could do. Okay. Now, secondary trauma then versus vicarious trauma. And again, these terms sort of, but vicarious trauma basically is what we could talk about as a re-traumatization, that I myself have experienced something traumatic in my life. And then when a client comes in, they're talking about something very similar to what I've dealt with in my life history. And so when I'm hearing that from the client, it brings it all back up into me. That the concept of the word trigger, that I'm triggered of my own trauma because of what I'm hearing from the other person. Now, this is really important because sometimes these reactions come out like a person is telling me about maybe some bullying that they've experienced on the playground when they were kids, and maybe that's something that you have yourself have put away for in your own life, that maybe you were bullied, but you find yourself having this reaction like you want to cry or you want to run away or I as the provider want to have deep experiences of this feeling, but realizing, why am I having this? It takes some real looking at yourself, looking at talking it out a little bit. Why am I feeling this way? Wow, I realize maybe because of I wanted to forget or not think about the fact that I was bullied when I was a kid on the playground, and it's really upsetting to me. And so I need to talk that out with somebody else so that I can be fully available to the client and hear their story, and so that I'm not just so caught up in my own. So when I think about this vicarious trauma, there's a lot of different ways to try to deal with it or handle it. And I think one thing is to be able to just be honest with yourself. That's the primary kind of thing. We've got to do our own work. I mean, I can't tell you, I've been a social worker for a long time. And so when I came out as a young person at 23 or 4 or whatever, I'm kind of pretty sure I knew it all. But then sometimes there'd be a client that would really ring a bell with me. And I'm like, why am I thinking about this person all the time? Or why is this so emotionally respond to me? Then that was all before I'd maybe done some of my own work. Then later I do my own work. I have to tell you, I am so much more available to clients now because I've done my own work in a therapeutic setting for myself. I hope that's not TMI, but I think it's just true that I've given myself to the therapeutic process so that I can be more available to the clients that I'm serving. To kind of go back to what I very first said in the very first beginning of this time when I started prattling on to y'all, that like it's we are using our real self. I am using my own self. When I'm in the room as a caseworker, as whatever I am doing with the person, I'm really relating to them, and so I want to have a connection with them. That's part of the job. And so when they are experiencing things that ring a bell with me, it's going to ring a bell. And so then therefore, how am I going to work with that? How am I going to be available to that? And how am I going to not want to run away from it? If somebody's talking about bullying on the playground and it was something very painful to you, then sometimes our thing might be, I want to run away from it. So therefore, I'm not going to talk about that to the client. Well, that's not going to do anybody any good. But if I have talked to my own therapist, my own supervisor, whoever else about this, wow, this experience of being bullied on the playground was really tough on me. I don't think I realized how tough it had been on me until I heard this client talk about it. Okay, but I want to be available to that. Then there's also this question of, do I tell the client that I was bullied on the playground and identify with them, or give them the experience that, like, I think that could be your own call. Why am I telling the person that I had the same experience? Is it to kind of unburden myself? Is it to give the person the experience that they're not the only one? Is it that I feel like I'm just realizing this and I need to tell somebody? Well, I think there's good reasons and probably not so good reasons to want to share something like that. But if you feel like that you've got it worked through, you've contained it, you feel like you're pretty aware of your own emotional reactions around whatever issue it is, I think to share that with with someone, it can be impactful and can be helpful. I have to admit, I've done some things like that before, where I've talked to a client about well, what yours, but really it's not the first thing that you would say. A person comes in, I was bullied on the playground. Oh my gosh, me too. I think that's probably not what you're looking for, but to let the person unload their experience of this. What was it like for them? You're asking questions about it. You're getting their experience. And then maybe eventually you'll say, something I wanted to share with you was that I too was bullied, and I hear what you're saying. I don't understand your experience, and I don't completely know what your whole experience was, but I know what my experience was, and mine was very painful. I've had to do some real work to try to grow from that and try to heal from that. So I understand the work that you're having to go through. That's just a different thing than, oh my gosh, me too. It's not that big of a deal. Or or they're talking about it and I'm going to avoid it. Or something like that. Oh, I know exactly what you're saying. Those things aren't real helpful. But eventually, after the person has worked through and shared and talked, maybe that's where you could kind of engage on something if you felt it was appropriate, if you felt like it was going to be helpful. No one has to do that. That's whatever. Okay. So basically, here's a little bit more, just a little bit more about that, which I think I've already kind of said. Some of the things that happen with this vicarious trauma is the term trigger and flashback. That sometimes you can have a real trigger that the trigger means in the moment the person's talking about bullying on the playground, and then you are automatically in your own brain kind of put back in the same emotional state or the same physical state in some places of that moment of being bullied on the playground, and it can be painful and difficult. Now, maybe you're having this kind of a reaction. Maybe you're having some of the PTSD sort of symptoms of derealization or depersonalization, or maybe your heart's pounding so loud you can hear it in your ears or something in a setting or in the client's home or in the car with a client or whatever you're doing with a client. It is absolutely okay to say, hey, I need to step out to the bathroom. Well, maybe not if you're driving in the car, but but to say, I need a little bit of a minute. I want to share that what you're telling me is impacting me very, very much, and I want to be available to you so that I can fully engage with you on this issue. But I need to take a quick little break. I will be right back. Is that okay with you? Can we have this moment collaboratively decide that it's okay for me to step out of the room for a minute? So that is completely and utterly okay. Again, myself have done that. Hey, look, hey, I need to step out for a second. What you're saying is very, very important, and I need to take a break in the bathroom for a minute so that I can be fully available and so that we can talk fully about this. Whatever it is that you say, but I think, hey, I got to get out. That might not be so helpful, but to set a context and be able to say, is that okay with you that I step out for just a minute so I can be fully available to you? Great way to say it. I've learned that from somebody else. It's not just mine. So I've wanted to share that with you, that's okay. And then sometimes this may lead to a little bit of a flashback. Again, I feel like this is a Ragan Schriver story, but to think about that, there have been times when I've heard something in a session or in a time with a client, a period of time with a client, and then later I begin to kind of feel weird or feel kind of wonky or whatever, and realize, wow, what they were talking about, I'm really connecting with because of whatever I had experienced in my own life. And then that's where I need to do my own work and talk to somebody or write about it or pray about it or meditate about it or whatever I want to do, whatever I need to do, what's helpful for me about whatever this situation is. But as you can see, that these different things have all been that burnout, compassion fatigue, secondary and vicarious trauma are 4 different experiences that are all kind of under the umbrella of stress response, but they're coming at us in different ways. I think it's important, I believe it with all my heart, that it really is important to think about what is it that's happening to me. It's the old thing I've said it 20 times. I had this headache. What's wrong with me? I could have taken Tylenol or whatever, and that would have done with it, but I still would be dehydrated. Or maybe I could just go do more exercise, thinking that'll make it feel better. Well, I'll only make it worse. Well, because I don't really know what's going on. But if I know that I've got some difficulty or pain or issue that's in my life, and I want to think about it, then what is it where is the source of this? Is it a trigger of a trauma that I've experienced? Am I just taking on the trauma of someone else? Do I have too much to do? Am I getting so emotionally connected to some of these things that they're kind of drawn on me? So these are some important questions to kind of think or reflect on or to look at for yourself. What are these are some important questions that are here on the screen to just reflect on, oh, how is this stuff impacting me? How am I experiencing the stress or the issues of my life in a way? Okay, so what are we going to do about it? We can do that in the last couple minutes, and then we could take a couple questions if you wanted to hear what we had to say. Regulate, relate, and reason. So regulate, relate, and reason. Okay, so let's start right with regulate. Okay, so here is when kind of in the moment we have to manage our own reactions. So this is a little bit of a grounding situation. So say I'm in a situation, I keep using the bullying example. Say I'm somebody's talking about bullying and it's horribly painful to me. Okay, I can't run screaming from the room. I can't, pull the car over and whatever, go lay down. So, but I need to think about, do I feel my butt in the chair? Do I feel my shoes in my feet? Am I able to identify some of the colors in the room or in the place that are around me? Am I really, I am here and I am safe. So that's a really important tool. Maybe there's something that you could even keep in your pocket, or maybe there's something in the room that you could kind of focus on when things are getting very difficult for you. Maybe there's a sign or something that you've got in like a room that's in your room that might say something like be mindful, or something that might say whatever it says, to focus on that. When you're getting stressed in a case meeting or a counseling session or something like that, that you've got an off ramp, that you know where you're going to go. Because I think, like, oh, I've got these 20 coping mechanisms, so when I get stressed I can use one of these 20. Well, then you have to stop and think, well, which one am I going to use? And then you find yourself getting preoccupied. But if I'm going to feel this stone in my pocket, and that's going to help me realize that I'm here, I'm safe. This is this person's experience. This is my experience. So I want to regulate myself in the best way that I can. Do I have some maybe words of affirmation, or some things that I can think about to kind of help ground myself again? I think that's really, really important, so that I recognize that I am in control of my own emotions. I am in control of the situation that I'm in right now. And I think also a validation of this experience. No wonder I feel sad. No wonder I feel stressed. I mean, anybody would feel stressed in this situation. Anybody would feel sad in this situation. I'm a normal human being and I'm having a normal human reaction, and that's okay. Now, what am I going to do about it? I'm going to feel this stone and I'm going to be grounded, or whatever I'm going to do. So I feel like that regulation. Hey, it's okay. This is a common experience. Hey, do I have some off-ramp stress responses? I've got a sign I'm going to look at. I've got a rock that I'm going to feel. I'm going to recognize that my shoes and my feet in my shoes, whatever that grounding mechanism is. It's really important. Okay. So I think what we need to do in order to kind of help regulate ourselves and in response to all this stuff is to create a safe, quiet space for ourselves, and also for how we're working with the clients. Just to recognize all the environment in which we're in. I think that's really important. I think routines are very important for all of us, to know that, like, okay, when this very taxing session is over, I know that I'm going to go out in the hall and I'm going to get a drink of water. There's a routine that I've got that I can regulate myself back to get ready for the next thing that I'm doing, or whatever that is. I think predictable routines can be really, really helpful to know what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go, things like that. Then not like, okay, well, what happened? Every day is different. Although many of us, every day is different. Is there something that I can cling on to that is sort of a consistent pattern, even though I'm in different places, different homes, different areas every day? Is there something that I can cling on to? Whatever that may be for you, to kind of create a little bit of a routine. Okay. Um, okay. So I think here's some recommendations for some more recommendations for regulating. So really, you could, like, chewing gum, eating something, things like that. Movement, getting up. Maybe you've got a rocking chair that you can sit in your office. That'd be great. You can kind of get a little bit of movement. Am I stretching something? Is there music that I can play in between sessions or during sessions, or whatever, or time with clients, whatever that is? Those are important things. So now relate. So we'll regulate. What about relate? So really, the connection between people who have experienced trauma, there's such an important connection that we can share with each other. It means so much. So maybe we've got a good supervisor, we've got good colleagues to work with, we've got other people that we can interact with. That type of thing can be great. How do I relate? So that's one of those resiliency factors of making the human connection. That's a resiliency factor. How can I find somebody to connect with and talk to and share this experience about? That's really, really important. Um, let's see. Okay. Then, all right. Uh, relating can help really recognizing some of the things here. How do I relate to myself? How to relate to the person that I'm with? You can do all kinds of things to help reframe. Ask myself the question, what happened to me to bring about this experience that I'm having right now, and talk about that with somebody else, whatever that might be. And the language that we use when we're relating. I'm a survivor. I'm celebrating this. I'm rather than I'm a victim too. I'm a survivor too. That kind of language that we talk about or share. Okay, and then reason. Okay, reasoning is a big deal. To think about, how am I being consistent with myself? Am I consistent with myself and with the client? Do I have strategies for dealing with difficult problems? Am I recognizing the developmental stage that I'm in? All those kinds of things to think about. I think the reasoning involves reframing, kind of reviewing what's going on, emphasize the ability that I'm in control. I can make changes in my life. Think about, how can I foster hope for myself and for the client, and to focus on the future strategies. If this happens to me again, or if I find myself burned out again, what am I going to do about it? So one thing before we kind of wrap up, just to say, is that all of us are different. I've shared some of my own experiences. I've shared hopefully some things that are maybe more universal for everyone, but because of I can share my experience because of my race, my gender, my place in life that I'm in, all the family that I've had, all that stuff. It's my view. It's my world. But there are so many different factors that impact us, each one, to make us who we are. We are just one big intersection of a lot of different characteristics and influences and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of things that have come together to make you who you are, the unique, special person that you are. And it's the same thing for me. So how do I understand all that? And maybe there's different things in my life that might make me be sources or resources, or might be something that might detract from maybe a successful situation because I'm burned out, or because I've got stressed or something in my life. So that intersectionality is a really important thing to think about. So having a bit of cultural humility, not with just our clients, but with ourselves. This is where I came from. This is who I am, and this is how I'm dealing with this particular situation. So hopefully those are some thoughts or some ideas that I've kind of shared with you today. And I'm of course going to share the PowerPoint that you guys can have and look at, and hopefully maybe have things to think about too. So I'll quit sharing and see if there's any questions or comments or thoughts or anything that everybody would have. We've got about just a few minutes before we have to wrap up, I think. Any questions at all?
Something that I had in mind just as you were talking is just the time of year too that we're kind of in, is that holiday season. And that's kind of one reason, of course, we scheduled this around your availability too, but I was thinking it would be really good, in December, kind of as we close the year up. This is a time when I feel like a lot of us are feeling a lot of stress around our jobs, our families, everything that we're going through. Do you have any recommendations for, like, I don't know, just this season of time for us to keep in mind?
That's a great question. I feel that, like, we're supposed to all be happy, right? We see it on TV. Everybody's smiling, having a great time. Watch the Hallmark Channel. I'm sure everybody's great. Whatever's going on there. So I feel like that there is that pressure, that added pressure. I feel like if you're already burned out, if we already have some vicarious trauma or things like that are going on, then there's this other layer at this point of the year where everybody's happy, or you're supposed to be happy, you're supposed to feel this way, or whatever. All those things, the layers, to just kind of forgive ourselves, to recognize, wow, I mean, that's all going on out here, but I don't have to buy into what the society is giving me to do. What's interesting? Like, I know one of the churches that I was kind of talking to, that they've got a religious ceremony that they do on Christmas Eve that's for people that are grieving, or that I forget what they call it, but so it's just because so you don't have to be all around. Maybe something's difficult happening in your life. I think it's a great acknowledgement that, look, everybody isn't all Charlie Brown and Peppermint Patty, singing it or whatever, you know what I mean? That there is that. I think that's just, and allow ourselves to have that little bit of forgiveness around that. I just think that I couldn't say enough about that. I think that's important. That was a great question. That's a great thing to think about. Let's see. Um, how do we deal with grief coming into the holiday season, dealing with the overwhelming closing out of the year and dealing with a recent loss? So that could be a whole big thing. The grief issue is so real. Just to say that it is so tough. How do we recreate? I mean, so like if someone is lost to you and that is no longer here with us, then and it's the first Christmas or what, there's all these things, and that at every first is just so hard. So I think the first thing is just to acknowledge it is hard. This is hard, and it's expected to be hard, and it's okay to let yourself feel this. What better thing to have loved somebody so deeply that there's just a big hole in your heart for that person. And so to recognize that and recognize that this is the first time they normally cut the turkey or they normally wrapped the presents. Wow, now there's this big hole here. What are we going to do to kind of make things different? And I think just stop and acknowledge that and recognize that along the way. I feel like, and just to forgive yourself for this. I just think it's so important to not kind of put an expectation. Oh gosh, I have to put on a fancy face for this. But no, I this is real. This is really who I am. It's a part of human life. Just because it's at this time of year, and I think like all that about the closing out of the end of the year, layered with the issues the clients have to face, layered with your own kind of loss or experience of that. I mean, there's just so many layers there. How can we pull some of this stuff apart? And how do we have people in our life that are supporting us in this, that we don't have to do it all alone, that we can get other people involved in helping us with this stuff. Hopefully that's just a little bit of a thought, but man, there's just so much there. Hopefully there were a couple of good things to think about or just to kind of reflect on, especially as we enter into this year-end time.
Absolutely. We're really thankful for this presentation. I know just for myself, being reminded of those four completely different experiences that can sometimes make you feel in some of the same ways. It's like, okay, what's the root of this issue? Where's this coming from? I need to understand what's happening to me, to understand how to help myself. So thank you for those reminders, Dr. Schriver. This was a really great, engaging webinar. We really appreciate your time. And thank you all for being here today. I hope that everyone can be encouraged to give yourself a little bit of kindness, especially during this season. And, you all are doing so many kind things for the clients and the families that you work with. So I hope that you can take some time away and do that for yourself too. Like I said, I'll get this posted to the YouTube channel ASAP, and I'll send out all of the materials and stuff this afternoon to you all so that you can have that as well. Chase and I are working hard on things coming up in January, so I'll try to put some of that into the email this afternoon too, just to let you know what's coming up. But we hope that everyone has a blessed holiday season with your families and with each other, and we look forward to seeing y'all soon. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much. And thanks for all the nice comments.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Schriver.